welcome back to the Always Reading Book Club. It is your girl Kiki Reader, and we are getting right back into our His for a Week series. If you haven't caught up on the first two books, I'm going to put those links in the description below. Once you finish those, then you can join us for book 3, Tormented. So the book starts off with Kamani. She's waking up. Remember, she's at Ben's place. Then Ben shoots a text to Jake and tells him the same thing. I'll think about it. Because Jake, was calling back in. So so once he shoots that text off, he goes ahead and he goes into the shower. And so he grabs her and she's like, it's too early for sex. And I'm like, early sex is the best. And so he's like, do you have issues with morning sex? So he reaches down and he puts his 2 fingers in her pussy and he can tell it's not the water. And so she goes, that must be left over from last night. So it's a shower head and he pushes it against her, a clit to make her come. And so then, of course, he's ready to fuck. So he goes and he gets a condom and he comes back. He fucks the shit out of her. Great scene. So when they're done, he says, you came twice, didn't you? And she's like, yes. And he was like, but you didn't ask permission. I was like, damn. When you head into these types of relationships, you really got to know the rules, So he told her to come up with a punishment. But of course, he's not going to give her any guidelines because he never does. That's just how he operates. So after the shower, he tells her to meet him in the playroom. So her punishment, he takes a vibrator and he puts it to her pussy. And then he also puts a ball gag in her mouth. And again, she can't come without permission. So he says, since you didn't want to go with me to the meeting, you'll just stay here. So she was like, how can I not come with a vibrator stuck to my pussy? Like, what do you mean? And he was like, I have the remote. So he had a, little app attached to it. So he can control, if it gets a little too much for her, he can back it off, He can just turn it down. So she was like, what if you don't turn it down in time? He was like, you better control it then. Also has an app for the camera that's in the room, in the playroom. So there's an app for the vibrator and then there's one for the camera. So 2 hours. So he didn't go to a meeting. He didn't go to the meeting. He just kind of went downstairs and talked to his assistant had come with everything that he requested. So he goes back to the playroom to give Kamani, I guess it was supposed to be a gift. He gave her an expensive ass chastity belt. She was like, how am I supposed to go to the bathroom? He said, you have to drip dry. I was like, ugh. I don't like that. I don't like it at all. Because there was just enough of a slit so that the pee could just pass through, but then she couldn't wipe. I don't know. I don't like that. But hey, she signed up for it. Because that wouldn't work for me. So after that, they go downstairs. They go to meet Batar, who of course is his bodyguard, because he's only going to allow one. So he states that he did some more digging on Jake, and he did find that he had bullied a kid so bad in high school that the guy killed himself. But Ben was still convinced, that doesn't make him, he's an asshole, but I just think he has small dick syndrome, but I don't think he's any real danger. Of course, Kamani disagrees. So then Ben tells her that his driver Wong is going to be at her disposal for today, and so he gives her several hundred dollars to go and get her hair done. So she of course does the whole "I'll be you back," you know. So after she leaves, well, he leaves, and then she initially wants to go to a coffee shop, and then she thinks against it because she's like, she's got this whole ass chastity belt on. So she calls her hairdresser, a girl named Keisha, to do her hair. And Keisha was like, I got an appointment. And Kamani's like, listen, I'll offer to pay the person $100 if they'll move their appointment, and I'll pay you double for the braids. So, of course, the girl agrees, And then she goes to her home because I guess the girl braids out, out of her home. So she gets there, and they're like bothering her because they can tell, we can see there's a glow you have when you get you a new boo, especially after you've gotten some. You have a glow. Your girls are going to see it. So they're, of course, like, okay, so who's the guy? And she's all like, I don't know what you're talking about. She's like, oh, no, there's a guy. There's got to be a guy, And so she, of course, she never really gives them a lot of information. She was just kind of like, it's nothing serious or whatever. But the girl Keisha's like, if you got your new boo, let me put a little color in your hair. And she never allows him to do that, but she did. So then they really knew, like, oh yeah, she liked whoever this is. So then she heads to a coffee shop to meet up with Sam. So she still winds up going to a coffee shop. And she tries to see what more information he's gotten. And it isn't too much. But being that she brought up that Lee family, that's now Sam's focus. Because with his uncle, Ben's uncle, being in the mayoral race, this is getting interesting to him. What's really going on? Why is he meeting with Dawson? Like, there's, what's really going on? So she's trying to downplay it to Sam now because she can tell Sam is now lasered in on the Lee family. And she's like, let's focus back on the Scarlet auction. Because the truth of the matter is she likes Ben. And, she's not, that wasn't her angle from the beginning. She thought it could have been something bigger, but she wants to more so just focus on that Scarlet auction. So she's about to leave. Sam goes, and she's about to leave when the driver tells her that Mr. Lee is on his way. And then another thing, she didn't order any. I don't think she ordered coffee. She ordered green tea. So, see, he's already gotten in her head, So, Ben is tempted to, it shoots back to Ben. Ben's so tempted to plug in that USB that he found inside that pen of hers. But then he's like, that'll be invading her privacy. And I'm like, dude, you've already done a whole background check on the girl. It doesn't matter. Something's going on. Everything seems off. To me, I don't want to hear about that. Like, nah, because what if she's invading your space to try and do something that could harm your family? Like, you got to think about that. All that other issues for the birds. So he sees Wong. He's riding down the street. He sees Wong waiting outside of the coffee shop, and that's when he stops. And he, asks, who was Kamani there with. So Wong describes the guy. He's like, he's in his 40s, white male, this and that. So even though Ben didn't like the idea of her being with any man, he didn't really think it was anything for him to worry about. So he was actually, when he walks in, he's like turned into stone when he sees Kamani. Because girl, hair looks amazing. She looks amazing. And he was just like, oh my gosh, So he asked her, how does she feel about the chastity belt? And she's like, I hate it. And of course, it's like, he's all like, it didn't make you think of me. And she, of course, lies. She's like, no. But then, of course, she thinks about it like, you know what? You better tell the truth with this one. Because he could tell when she's lying. So she was like, yeah, it did. And so then he takes her to the bathroom and has her give him a blowjob. Yeah, that was kind of crazy. And then she still has on that chastity belt. That's what got me. I was like, dang, I gotta blow you. Can I take off this chastity belt? That would have, first of all, public restrooms, That's not exciting to me because I think they're dirty. So that would have been a little lost on me, you know? Like the blowjob, great. We couldn't do this nowhere else because the restrooms are just dirty to me. So they leave the restroom. He gets a call from his Uncle Gordon, asking, can he meet up with him? And, trying to find out how did the meeting with Dawson go. And all Ben said was that it went good. So apparently Dawson wants to use the space for a child care, even though the space isn't big enough for it. But Kamani's like, that's a good idea because, more child care is needed. And they head up to go meet up with his Uncle Gordon at a place called Maybell's. So Maybell's owned by a woman that Uncle Gordon helped when she was going, I'm sorry, I said that incorrectly, when she was going through cancer treatment and she was about to lose her home and her business. So Uncle Gordon did all he could. He did it pro bono, so that she wouldn't lose anything. And so she's forever grateful to him. He's treated like royalty when he goes there. It's a soul food joint. And she never charges him. So he just leaves like big tips because he feels guilty like not giving her money. So while they were there, they do have great conversation. When they leave, they get in the vehicle and Ben just kind of crushes Kamani's lips. And because he really liked the fact that her interaction with his uncle seemed genuine. He liked that. He loves his uncle and everything felt very genuine. So, plus, he's already incredibly attracted to her. So that also had a major play in it. So he kisses her and takes him a pretty good amount of time to stop. She's still got that stupid chastity belt on. He's rubbing her in where her cooch is, even though, because I guess, how do I say this? That like phantom feeling, like even if nothing's there, but you can feel like something's touching you. That was the whole effect he was going for with doing that. And so he gets a call from Ezra Rosenstein, who tells him about a guy that's been asking a lot of questions about them. And he automatically is like thinking this is more than likely Sam. He doesn't say this in front of Kamani, of course, but he's thinking in his head. So Ben tells him, get the name and then get back to me. So Kamani asks about Claire. So he calls Jason, who doesn't answer, so he leaves a message. Then Kamani asks, when are we going back? And Ben is like, are you in a rush? And she was like, I left something important, my pen. And he was like, why was it so important? What's so great? He's like, I got plenty of pens I can give you. And she's like, oh, it's the sentimental value. And so Ben is like, you brought with you a sentimental pen to a sex weekend? And she was like, it was a good luck charm. But it's like, girl, your luck running out. So I don't think it worked. So when they get back to his place, he starts asking her questions about Reyes and Chang. And how does she know that they're close? Because apparently all the lobbyists that he have hired haven't been able to get that type of information. He also asks her, like, who did you have lunch with? She says an old friend. She can't tell him where she got that information. And so she can't, because it was told to her in confidence. At that point, that's why I didn't understand why she just didn't say, hey, I was told in confidence, I can't tell you. End of the discussion. That's it. Simple. She doesn't. So now it makes him even more paranoid. And so I'm just like, this girl, this just doesn't make sense. Then he's like, well, you know what? Since you know so much, he's like, hell, I need to be paying you. He was like, and I'm paying these lobbyists $20,000 a month. And she turns down the job. I'm like, huh? And he's like, so let me get this straight.